Hello everyone, welcome back to Keep Running with BK, and I'm your host, and I've been running for nearly 38 years now, and this is the earliest running picture I have from my cross-country days back when I was 12 years old in middle school, and I have been running ever since. Fortunately, for the first 2.5 decades, I was able to run roughly 20 to 35 miles a week, maybe a little bit more during marathon training time, and finishing consistently in the top 10% of my age group. But over the past decade or so, I've had some challenges and some struggles. And it wasn't until this past summer when I discovered the Maffetone or MAF training approach that my running has really experienced a rejuvenation. And in today's video, I want to share with you 8 reasons why Maffetone training may be a good fit for you. Right after this. Welcome back, and to get started, I want to just mention that I did an earlier video where I covered the basic overview of what Maffetone or MAF training is. So I'll put a link to that up in the upper corner, and I'd encourage you to check that out if you have no idea what I'm talking about. Otherwise, let's jump into today's video where I'm going to talk about 8 reasons that MAF training may be a right fit for you. So starting off, number 1, you're just starting out, or maybe you're just getting back into running after an extended period of no running, and you want to get back into it. It's really important to ease into things, to give your body the opportunity to make the adaptations, just to ease back into the level of stress that you're going to be putting it through as you go through your running. And MAF training is a great way to do that. It's slower running, it's low heart rate running. It allows the soft tissues, it allows your heart, it allows your brain to kind of get re-engaged. Just every aspect, physically and mentally, about running. MAF is a great way to start off or ease back into things and to lay that foundation and that base aerobic foundation for successful running for the long term. And I would highly recommend committing to that process and giving it at least 3 to 6 months to really develop before you decide what you do from there, whether to continue with MAF or to transition to 80-20, or maybe even try some of your old tried and true training approaches that you enjoy and are more familiar with. Number 2 is very similar to number 1. Maybe you want to build your mileage. So maybe you're running 25, 30, 35 miles a week and you want to take it to a whole nother level. Maybe you want to go 40, 45, 50 or beyond. Maybe you're one of those people that has the time and the ability and the foundation to run 60, 70, 80, all the way up to 100 or beyond miles. The Maffetone Training Method, I think from my experience thus far, is a great approach to minimizing the risk of injury from harder efforts and other things that you may be trying to do by slowing it down, keeping it within your Maffetone training heart rate, and allowing yourself to gradually build up your mileage to the desired levels before you start introducing back into it, harder efforts, hill efforts, racing, and that sort of thing. And so this can be a short-term thing. It may only take a few weeks or a month to add another 5 to 10 miles comfortably into your training week. Or if you have greater ambitions and want to go further and beyond that, it may require a little bit more time. Number 3, maybe you want to lose some weight, or maybe you want to learn how to burn fat calories more efficiently. Either scenario there, endurance running, anything from the 5K and beyond, is really considered an endurance activity, long distance running. And for endurance athletes, long distance runners, we primarily burn fat calories for long-term success. And so learning how to burn those more efficiently learn how to burn a higher percentage of fat calories versus carbohydrate calories, which truly can only last us a very short period of time at one time before we begin to tire and putter out, if you will. The Maffetone Training Method really trains your brain and your body to burn fat calories efficiently as a primary and an increasing percentage of fuel source for a successful endurance training program. Number 4, maybe you're battling overtraining. Or maybe you truly don't know what easy running feels like. I would describe for myself personally that for literally 3.5 decades, I didn't really truly understand what easy really meant. I'd always heard that easy running was important. It was an important component of an endurance runner's training regime. But my idea of easy was still probably a little amped up. And as I've really looked back over my struggles over the past decade, I think one of the conclusions I've come to is that I was running too hard, too often. And that led to a lot of the problems and the challenges and the struggle physically, mentally, to really feel good about my running. And so the Maffetone Training Method really teaches you how to slow down and really teaches you what easy should feel like, so that you're fully recovered. You're getting sufficient recovery in between harder efforts once you transition to like an 80-20 approach, or you're doing speed work and other hard efforts for your race season. But I think for me, that's probably the biggest benefit thus far from the Maffetone Training Method, is learning what easy really should feel like. I think one of the other things that's going on is it really helps me to, for my brain to kind of reset. I've got years and years of muscle memory. I could go out the door and I could, just nail, even after, a month or two, just really not doing much running at all, I can come out, hit the road, and I can run at that pace almost on autopilot, because I've got that muscle memory and my brain has been trained of what a daily run should be, or what a typical run should be like. And I think the Maffetone Method has really taught me again what easy should feel like, but it's also helped me to reprogram that muscle memory so that now the new autopilot program, if you will, for 80% of my running is truly at the right effort. So we're at the halfway point, and I just want to say, if you're finding this helpful or these insights beneficial to you, please click the like button. And with that, let's move on to number 5. Have you been experiencing trouble with injuries? Have you had a series of injuries and it seems like you just can't get out from underneath it? You get done with one injury and it's right into the next. That's been some of my struggle, really, the past 10 years or so. And it could be because I'm running too hard too often, like I talked about in the previous point, so I'm not getting that sufficient recovery. And therefore, when I go out and I'm trying to run hard, or I'm trying to increase my mileage, I'm setting myself up to get injured. I'm setting myself up to have problems. One of the other things that I've learned is that when you tend to run too hard too often, like myself, some of us are prone to be overstriders. And if you are overstriding and you're jarring your body, you're jarring your knees, you're jarring your hips from that overextension, and you do that long enough, you're gonna experience injuries. And if you're not learning how to slow down, if you're not learning how to shorten your stride and gradually improve your cadence and correct things like overstriding, then you're just going to repeat the endless cycle of injuries, constant hip problems, constant knee pain, and other things. And I think the Maffetone Training Method has really taught me, as I slow down, to learn to run more efficiently, because your stride naturally shortens. And so now I have more of a mid-foot strike rather than an extended heel strike. And I've noticed over the past 6 to 8 months, I've noticed that my cadence has gradually improved, gradually increased as I've gotten more comfortable, more relaxed, and I've been able to, as I slow down, really think about my running form and learning just those little things that add up over time. And I've gradually seen my cadence begin to improve. That doesn't mean as you're making those adjustments and as you're learning to run shorter and you're learning a midfoot versus a heel strike, that you're not going to have some new aches and pains and tight areas and things like that. Your body's adapting to those changes. I wouldn't necessarily refer to those as injuries that sideline you, but I think as you make that adjustment, I think that that's one way to hopefully end that endless cycle of injuries, so that you can stay injury-free and run pain-free for the long haul. Number 6, and I threw this one in here because it's a personal one. Maybe you want to go even further than you've ever run before. For instance, you may want to make that leap to the marathon. If by leap, that is a big jump for you, and that's going to require an adjustment. The Maffetone Training Method, maybe throwing in 6 months worth of MAF training just to build up that volume, build that endurance, will help you to make that leap. In my case, I've always had a bucket list dream of running an ultramarathon, which was further than I'd ever run before. And over the past decade, I've had multiple attempts to try to get back to the marathon, and just my body just couldn't hold up. It would constantly break down for a lot of the reasons I've already shared. So the idea of running an ultramarathon for me was just kind of out of the question and out of reach. But with the Maffetone method, when I learned it last year, I was able in 3.5 months to build up the volume, build up the conditioning and the confidence, and successfully complete my first 50K back in October of last year. And so I kind of threw that in there because for some of us, maybe we would love the idea of being able to go out there and run one of these super long ultra distances that requires the ability to be able to run for literally hours. I think mine was just shy of 7 hours. But in order to get there, the Maffetone method was a great approach to really get me, more than anything, mentally prepared to run for a long time, and to really slow down, to burn fat efficiently as the primary fuel source for that. Being comfortable with being on my feet and out there running for an extended period of time. I used to average 3.5-hour marathons, and so the idea of almost doubling that time after being away for a decade and easing back into it, Maffetone method is really the only reason I was able to truly complete that on my first attempt successfully. Number 7, if you are looking for an off season, non-racing season, maybe during the winter or during the summer, you have weather challenges like when there's not a whole lot of racing going on, there's a lot of maybe snow and ice and slipperiness going on. Trying to run fast just doesn't make any sense. And so the Maffetone method is a great way to maintain and build your aerobic capacity, but also to keep it easy and avoid those injuries and just build a solid foundation. So when spring comes, you can kind of really start building up to your racing season. Or if you're looking at a fall marathon, a MAF approach really helps to make sure that we keep it easy and we don't add to those stress factors. And we can just build a solid foundation over the summer as we build our mileage, build our conditioning, build our mental preparations for the fall when temperatures start to cool off, and we can really start fine-tuning for those ultra long distances. And number 8, which may at the end of the day be ultimately the most important one from my perspective. If your desire is to have a long running career, I think the principles that you learn with the MAF training method are things that you should one, learn and then incorporate into your long-term training plans. You may not be running 100% MAF all the time, but for some of us that may be all we need. Maybe that's all we want. But you can incorporate MAF into an 80-20 approach, where 80% of your running is easy and 20% of your training is hard efforts. But learning through MAF what easy truly is allows us to make sure that during that 80% of our weekly mileage, we are truly training effectively using the MAF principles. Maybe you're using periodization and you're coming up with an annual training plan for your on season when you're training for races, or in your off season. MAF principles can be incorporated into both of those so that you have an effective training and you're consistently, systematically, and in a very disciplined manner building your endurance year after year, you're laying the foundation and you're building upon it for a long, successful, injury-free running career. I really hope that you found this video helpful. Maybe you've got some other reasons or considerations to adopt the Maffetone Training Method. If so, feel free to share those. And until next time, stay safe, train smart, and keep running.